The protagonist is a warrior of the Empire. Because of his passion for dog teasing, he often messes around with monsters. Whenever on a mission, he would draw his sword to prepare some basic moves to send this snake to the scoreboard, but unfortunately slipped and fell into a pit. When he woke up, the protagonist heard someone calling him. He opened his eyes to see a beautiful woman with platinum hair in front of him. Then the girl suddenly kissed his forehead, which surprised him greatly. Could it be that my lucky charm has arrived if a beauty is making the first move? And I don't respond, that would be really rude. But just as the protagonist was about to get to it, he suddenly realized he had turned into a baby. With such tiny hands, how can I get anything done? Then he heard the girl speak gently. Arn, my dear child, you must be hungry, right? Now the protagonist realized he had been reincarnated as a child named Arn, and that woman was his mother. Actually, Arn was quite familiar with this because in his past life, he had reincarnated many times, so it was nothing unusual. At this point, Arn calmed down. Looking around, he noticed the room was decorated in the style of the medieval Western era. Arn was a little disappointed because the most comfortable place to live was the scientific world. Everything was fully equipped and extremely luxurious, especially the bathroom, which had a bidet, unlike the ancient times where they just had a chamber pot. Besides his mother, Arn also noticed a rather cute maid beside her. From what he saw, he concluded he was living in a European feudal noble family. Though there was no bidet, at least Arn's current identity was still that of the eldest son of a wealthy nobleman. Looking into the affectionate eyes of the girl holding him, Arn knew this was a mother with boundless love for her child. Because of many reincarnations, Arn had met all kinds of mothers with all sorts of situations. Once Arn was abandoned by his birth mother right after he was born. Another time his mother treated him as a tool to make money. He had to work like crazy every day. Then Arn heard the maid call his mother Lady Lavana and call him Prince. It turned out that not long ago, Arn's mother was just a maid. After hearing this, Arn understood his identity was a prince, but his mother was a commoner. According to the noble laws of the feudal kingdom, a prince born from low status would have no right to inherit anything. Seeing his mother in a bad mood, Arn reached out his small hand to wipe the tears from her face. That made Lady Lavana feel much better. Arn wasn't really concerned about inheriting the throne, because in his 101 reincarnations, this was already a place he could live very well. At least as a prince, even without real power, he wouldn't have to worry about food and clothing. Eating well every day while waiting to die as a dog in the palace, that's the royal way. Arn suddenly remembered the royal power struggle dramas he had watched before. A prince with nothing outstanding and a life full of royal fights and intrigue would most likely get canned food right from the first episodes. No inheritance rights meant he was basically a useless nobody. Without anyone's support and no power in hand, there's nothing to protect yourself or those around you. 3 months later, Arn was completely used to his new body. He started training based on the experience accumulated from countless previous lives. In any world, strength is the ultimate truth. As long as you're the strongest on the server, no one dares to mess with you. The method that helped Arn gain power with this baby body was a secret Qigong technique, a cultivation method he invented during his 30th reincarnation. It's a divine skill that allows Arn to cultivate both heavenly Qi and original Qi simultaneously. What's more special is the ability to circulate Qi within the body of a baby whose teeth haven't even grown yet. And normal people would never be able to notice this. This is an extremely overpowered secret technique when first practicing. Until age 10, you get the power equivalent to 65. Training until age 20, you gain power equivalent to 185. An obvious hacking move from the main character's position. At this moment, Arn began to accelerate his cultivation progress. He could feel the primal energy flooding throughout his body. Its heat made his head dizzy. The energy had reached its highest level. Suddenly, a maid entered, forcing Arn to pause his cultivation. It seemed she intended to change Arn's diaper. Just a light touch at this time would cause all the energy he had painstakingly accumulated to vanish, making him sweat. Fortunately, the maid saw Arn didn't need a diaper change and left the room. After she disappeared behind the house, he resumed cultivating. I'm only holding back a little now. Watch me explode. Arn didn't know how much longer his small body could withstand it, but he'd rather die than live under someone else's control. He pushed his Qi circulation to the extreme limit, all for the comfortable life he would have later. Suddenly, the room was filled with the sound of a child's cry. The maid grew very worried and immediately returned to check on Arn. Luckily, Arn had just finished cultivating. He only had a little sweat on his forehead. The maid thought he was just overheated and quickly went to prepare an herbal bath for him. After the bath, he would feel comfortable right away. Once the maid left, Arn immediately jumped up happy that he had successfully cultivated the super advanced water chi. After the bath, he indeed felt much cooler and more comfortable, making him smile with his eyes squinted shut. Currently, the mana in the air was being disturbed by Arin's chi from his super advanced water chi evolution. In other words, as long as he ate and slept, he would naturally grow stronger. Just give Arin enough time to mature and no one in this world would be his match. At that time, he would be the final boss of the server, no one else but him. He truly looked forward to the days when he could live leisurely like a prince, doing nothing but still having plenty. If his trainer saw this, he'd definitely be insanely jealous. Years later, thanks to the secret chi technique, Arin's physique and innate energy were enhanced. His body also grew faster than other children his age. Moreover, it automatically absorbed innate energy daily. Lady Lavana came over, picked Arin up, and said she had a gift for him. Then she took out a 6-pronged rattle, making him think how many lifetimes he had lived to still be playing childish games like this. But not wanting to upset his mother, he pretended to play along. This is really fun. Being a kid isn't easy at all. Deep down, he thought although he was a child, he was an old soul who'd lived many years. Yet today, he had to act cute to please 2 little girls. After playing for a while, Arin began to feel hungry. How could this tiny child's body get hungry so fast? And he couldn't say it, which was frustrating. Luckily, the maid noticed the prince was hungry and quickly made a warm bottle of milk for him to drink. While drinking, Arin overheard his mother and the maid talking and learned that the palace's budget had been cut this year. Because there wasn't enough money to pay the maids, some had to be dismissed. Even everyone's daily meals were reduced. But the budget still wasn't enough. Despite the hardship, Lady Lavana tried her best to provide Arin with enough nutrition. The maid said the biggest worry was the upcoming winter. Winter meant no farming and having to care for a child. Arin felt a bit doomed. He thought being a prince meant he wouldn't starve anymore. The maid wanted Lady Lavana to speak with the king, but she refused. She believed the king was busy with state affairs at this time. This made Arin a little angry at his father, whom he hadn't met in this life. No matter how hard it was, he should at least meet his wife and child once. Could it be that this guy was an absent father? No matter how indifferent he was, that was unacceptable. Arin guessed that perhaps the king's other concubines had prevented him from seeing his mother. Arin couldn't help but feel hatred when looking at his poor mother. In his heart, even though he was just a child, he still wanted to help his mother no matter what. In the evening, Arin was sitting in the pen thinking about how to get through this winter. That is the most important issue that needs to be solved right now. First, he needed a lot of money to replenish food supplies. Winter also required more dry firewood to keep warm than usual. While unsure of what to do, suddenly an idea popped into his head. If it's that thing, it will definitely work. Looking at the coal in the fireplace, Arin remembered the gemstone carbon formed from carbon elements. That's a diamond. His mother also has one. In this world, gemstones are extremely valuable assets. So the problem is solved. If there's no diamond, I'll just make one. Usually charcoal doesn't have many uses, but in Arin's current situation, it was considered a precious material. Arin started to feel proud. He even thought of making a diamond from charcoal. You really are a once-in-a-century genius, Arin. He wanted to take advantage of everyone sleeping to quickly make a diamond. Arin began combining heat with mana, compressing pressure on the charcoal by pouring in as much mana as possible. This process was very important. If he failed, the energy Arin just gathered would be wasted. At this moment, Arin thought of his mother. She wouldn't be sad anymore if he could create a diamond. Finally, after so much effort, he succeeded. In his hand was a shiny diamond. Aside from how it was made, it looked pretty impressive. The diamond was finished. The next step was to give it to the adults as naturally as possible. Otherwise, if they found out a kid like Arin had a diamond, it would be a disaster. The next morning, the maid came to check on Arin and found he had crawled out of the crib. She was very surprised. A child who couldn't even reach was not supposed to climb out of the crib. Seeing Arin's face covered in coal dust, she noticed the fireplace on the other side was completely messed up by him. Looking closely, the maid realized Arin was holding something in his mouth. Afraid the prince would put something random in his mouth, she gently took it out. Unexpectedly, it was a diamond inside. The maid was extremely surprised. Since she managed the finances here, she had never noticed any missing gemstones. Moreover, Lady Lavana did not own any diamonds. She just thought that Prince Arin had brought this good luck. Shortly after, a whole carriage procession entered the castle. The empty storeroom in the kitchen was now filled with firewood and food. The workers no longer had to worry. That was because this diamond was sold at the highest price of the year. Next year, we won't have to worry about running out of food or firewood anymore. At first, Lady Lavana was a bit scared. What if the diamond had an owner that wouldn't be good? But the maid immediately reassured her that this castle had been ownerless for nearly 100 years before everyone moved here. Maybe God was watching over the prince. Lady Lavanna wasn't sure about that, but still felt very happy. Suddenly, Aaron walked over and held his mother's hands. Mom, wait until I grow up. When that day comes, I promise to protect you from all hardships. I will make that king regret how he treated us. That winter, the castle's fireplace never stopped burning. The finances were more stable. You could see clear changes everywhere. The workers who had been fired had returned. Just like I thought, Mom looks best when she smiles. That winter was the coldest in history, but also the warmest. Time passed and our prince turned 1 year old. Lady Lavanna bought Aaron many beautiful clothes and made him change from one outfit to another. Aaron didn't understand why adults got so worked up over a child's clothes like his. I was so upset that Aaron wanted to keep doing this, so I pretended to cry. Lady Lavanna thought her son was sleepy and put him back in the crib. Hearing the maid talk, it seems that on Aaron's upcoming birthday, the castle will host a party. At that time, he will be officially declared a member of the royal family. Because of this, the lady also feels more excited than usual. When Aaron suddenly thought about it at a royal party, the nobles and other members of the royal family would surely attend. Then maybe he will meet the old man he has never seen before. In the blink of an eye, Aaron's birthday arrived. Looking around, Aaron realized his mother must have spent quite a sum to organize his party. The sound of classical music flowing and the incredibly magnificent formal dresses. Today, Aaron is the main character of this party. While being lovingly held in his mother's arms, he suddenly sensed some hostile gazes directed at him. However, Aaron didn't pay attention and only wanted to see who exactly the king was, since he had never met the wife and newborn son even once. The other party didn't even care how he and his mother lived. Truly a bastard. At this moment, the Anesia royal family appeared. Their presence signaled the official start of the ball. Ariel looked at the elegant, blonde woman in front of her. She thought silently, no wonder she's the queen, such an intimidating presence. If that's the case, then the children beside her must be her half-siblings. He observed each person carefully. Being royal descendants, they stood out like cranes among chickens. Unexpectedly, they walked right past without even greeting his mother. Just one word, Dad, and he was already annoyed. Although isolated, Lady Lavanna still appeared composed and gentle. Truly my mother. At that moment, Aaron noticed his mother's expression was somewhat different. Hearing a noise, he immediately turned his head. What's that? It turned out to be His Majesty the King. Just looking at him, Aaron felt an immense amount of mana. It could silence all the gossiping nobles instantly. This person really wasn't to be messed with. Then the king only glanced briefly at the two of them and said nothing. The party continued with birthday gifts and congratulations from the lower-ranking nobles. The higher-ranked nobles shared one thing in common, an openly disdainful attitude. Those stuck-up nobles dare to treat my mother like that. Just wait until I grow up, I'll deal with each of them. No need to be so bold now. Aaron even wanted to pierce their eardrums with his crying. But if he did that, it would embarrass his mother, so he spared those arrogant nobles. Well, I'll hold back for Mom's sake, just letting off some steam. Say whatever you want. This prince is too sleepy now and going to bed. Just as he was yawning, suddenly a hand pinched his cheek. Ah, that hurts a bit. It turned out the culprit was a little blonde girl. It seems she was also a daughter of one of the ladies in the palace. Well, since you're still young, I'll let it slide this time. During the party, the emperor's concubines came to congratulate Lady Lavanna and the prince. But their attitude wasn't very good. Soon after the party quickly ended. At that moment, a voice rang out. Lavanna, it's been a long time. It turned out the queen had brought her son to greet them and boast about how well her son was doing as the heir. Aaron watched disdainfully as she flattered her beloved son. Disgusting. Just as he suspected, the queen was on a whole different level compared to those nobles. And the queen praised Aaron for looking just like his mother. How adorable. But this prince is not that easy to fool. The tone and expression seemed friendly, but whether that was true was hard to say. If she really cared even a little about me and my mother, the finances of the 7 concubines' castles wouldn't be so bad. No firewood and no guards, and they even had to do work unrelated to their expertise. The others had to use leftover cloth from them to make their clothes. At this point, the king appeared and asked how the two of them had been doing lately. This made Aaron furious. No subsidies for food and clothes in winter. How is that okay? That stingy, miserly king. Why does everything he says just annoy me? If you weren't my father, I would have beaten you to a pulp by now. On the other side, the king suddenly saw Aaron acting up and told Lady Lavanna to hand over their son for him to hold. The king was very surprised by how calm Aaron was. Usually children cry loudly when they see him. This kid's pretty good. After all, he's still my old man, so Aaron smiled back. A man who isn't softened by his own child's smile doesn't deserve to be a father. What do you think of this move from the prince? Or should we surprise the old man a little more, thinking that Arryn squirmed, signaling the king to put him down on the ground? Seeing this, Lady Lavanna looked worried that Arryn still couldn't walk. Your Majesty, because today is only the boy's first birthday. Unexpectedly, right after she said that with everyone's terrified eyes on him, Arryn began to walk on his little feet. See how impressive I am, old man. Lady Lavanna and the maid were so happy they cried. In his heart, Arryn thought, I'll show you I'm nothing like your other kids. There are many people here, so now is the perfect time to show off. Unexpectedly, a sudden mishap happened. Arryn knocked over the banquet table by accidentally pulling the tablecloth. All the wine and food immediately fell to the floor. Everyone couldn't react in time because it happened too fast. But it turned out all of this was part of Arryn's plan. The king saw him crying loudly and immediately picked up his son to check if he was hurt. Meanwhile, Arryn acted pitifully like he was putting on a show. When they saw Arryn wasn't hurt, everyone sighed in relief. However, because his clothes were dirty, he needed to change into new ones. At that moment, the king suddenly turned pale. When he took off Arryn's shirt, he discovered there was an old, worn-out undershirt beneath. Is this really the undershirt of a prince? The maid beside him was extremely surprised. A brand new set of underwear. Seeing this, the king was furious. Those around him started whispering. That shirt didn't match the status of a prince at all. The child must have had an incredibly hard life. Suddenly, the king shouted loudly. The entire room instantly fell silent. No one dared to make a sound. Then he looked at Arryn with affectionate eyes. My son, what exactly have you been through? Back to the morning when the servant was preparing to change Arryn's clothes. He rubbed himself to warm up and tore his clothes. The fabric was thin enough that he could easily tear it with his baby hands. The dirt on the clothes came from him rubbing the fabric a little. Behind the luxurious clothes was a harsh reality, as if it was just a flashy facade. On the prince's birthday, the king immediately asked Lady Lavanna what had happened. This is not something a royal family member should wear. While Lady Lavanna didn't know how to explain, the king said, I shouldn't have asked you this. Then the king called the minister in charge of budgeting the palaces to question him. He replied, the budget was divided fairly, just as you said, Your Majesty. The king immediately got angry. Is this your idea of fairness? Bring me the spending details for Arryn immediately. This was a good opportunity. Although his birthday party suddenly turned into a trial, it was a chance to find out what kind of man his father really was. After the spending report was handed to the king, he was extremely furious. He immediately burned the paper with fire. The king's expression looked like he knew nothing about this. Then the king suddenly lowered his voice. My beloved queen, do you know anything about this? The queen was surprised but said, May I ask what is written there? The king revealed the budget wasn't divided evenly, but was leaked elsewhere. Isn't she responsible for everything related to the concubines in the harem? At that moment, from inside the crowd, the empress's son immediately stepped forward to defend his mother. All of this is caused by someone causing trouble. Mother would never do such things. But before he could finish, the king interrupted him. What do you mean? Just because she didn't do it, she doesn't have to take responsibility. Your younger brother had to live in hardship because of the lax management of my empress. This is truly disappointing. At that moment, Lady Lavanna spoke up. This is not the empress's fault. It's all because I'm unworthy of this favor. The king immediately turned to her. What nonsense are you talking about? You have given birth to a child who carries my blood. That proves you are a member of the royal family. Hearing these words, Lady Lavanna was deeply moved. Meanwhile, the empress's eyes showed anger. Finally, the king declared, we must find the culprit and make them take responsibility for this. Then he went on to tell the empress, I hope such incidents will never happen again. The empress bowed her head. I assure you, Your Highness, I will not bring any trouble to you again. After speaking, her hands clenched tightly on her dress. Then the empress said to Lady Lavanna, how can I make it up to you? At least I hope you will take responsibility for me so that I can feel relieved. Arryn immediately curled his lips. Stop pretending. How could an empress managing 6 palaces not know anything about this? What a fake, it's disgusting. Even I, the prince, couldn't sense a shred of sincerity in her eyes. And the other concubines were the same. Who knows how many of them were involved in this? The birthday party finally ended. The budget issue was also completely resolved. Not long after the mastermind was caught, the culprit behind this embezzlement was from a noble family. He was executed. Arryn learned this when he overheard the maids talking inside the castle. He thought the executed man was just a scapegoat in this case. The empress was the most suspicious. But everything calmed down after the execution. Just wait, Empress. When I grow up, I will definitely make you pay dearly. But first I have to eat. How can a child's body get hungry so fast? For now, I'll just play and eat like a child. No work to do, it feels so refreshing. After eating, Arn was about to take a nap when suddenly there was a noise outside. He quickly realized it was a carriage. It seemed like a guest had come to visit. So Aaron immediately used his spirit power to fly out of the crib to wake the maid before they entered the room. Because time was tight, Arn just pinched her cheek. Ouch, ouch, I'm sorry, my lady. At that moment, the maid also realized there was a guest. The visitor was Lady Finelia and her daughter, who was the king's concubine. They had appeared at Arn's birthday party today. Lady Finelia came without prior notice because she didn't want others to know about the visit. Then she told her daughter to play by herself before going into the room to talk privately with Lady Lavanna. And Finelia suddenly said, "Sorry, Lavanna," which confused her completely. Finelia explained, "I have always felt guilty about what happened at Arn's birthday party." Lady Finelia is a member of the Canchester family. In the past, when war broke out across the continent, the Canchester family made great contributions to stabilize the country as it is today. However, that glory has gathered dust. In the past, when no sons were born with military talent, the Canchester family began to decline. There were even rumors that they were having financial difficulties. To maintain the family, Finelia had no choice but to cooperate with the Empress to oppress Lady Lavanna. Feeling guilty, Finelia returned the embezzled money and begged Lavanna to direct all her hatred toward her alone. She just wants to protect her daughter from the troubles of palace intrigues. Lady Lavanna is a sensible person, so she doesn't blame Finelia. She didn't want to accept the money and told the other party to just see it as a symbol of their closeness. Only then did Lavanna reveal to Finelia why the Empress always targeted her. It was because before becoming the king's consort, she was originally a maid serving the Empress. Now Arryn understood why the Empress acted that way. Even though he was in the next room when controlling his chi, he could clearly hear their conversation. In the past, due to her low status, Lady Lavanna overlooked everything because she truly had no power to resist. But now it's different because she has Arryn. Even if it's the Empress, she won't let her do whatever she wants. Lavanna wanted to befriend Finelia not just out of kindness, but because when cornered, everyone needs someone to trust. Being a prince is definitely not as easy as Arryn thinks. One wrong move and you become a pawn in the power game. After the two ladies allied, Finelia's daughter, Princess Kanya, also began playing with Arryn. Unexpectedly, this kid dared to climb into the crib to pinch the prince's cheek. Even as a centuries-old villain, Arryn still had to cooperate with her to act this out. It's really infuriating. This prince doesn't want to be a kid anymore. Someone save me. Time passed like that. In the blink of an eye, Prince Arryn was 30 months old. Only half a year left until he would outgrow the 3 sticky rice cake pots in this world. Arryn couldn't help but marvel at how time flies so fast. But still he spoke with the typical babbling baby voice. When will this prince be able to speak normally? Back then, because of his eloquence, he could win over any woman he met within 10 minutes. Suddenly, Arryn heard familiar footsteps. It turned out Princess Kanya had come to find him to play. So he quickly hid in a corner, but still couldn't escape. This kid is really annoying, always clinging to this prince. I'm old enough to be your ancestor, you know. After their mothers reconciled, Kanya and Arryn's relationship also became much closer. Princess Kanya only liked playing with Arryn because her other siblings were mean and not fun to play with. Look at the princess hugging the little guy like she's about to suffocate him. This king can't breathe. Someone help. Suddenly, someone told the princess she shouldn't do that because children's bodies are easily injured. This girl is Kanya's personal bodyguard. Luckily, the savior appeared just in time. Otherwise, this prince would have been toast. The female bodyguard told the princess she should go inside to study painting or play a musical instrument. But Kanya said that would be boring. After looking around for a bit, she picked up a branch from the ground and said she wanted to learn swordsmanship. When she was in the palace, she had seen her older brothers practicing swordsmanship. Arryn watched from the side and thought this kid wasn't bad. When swinging the sword, her center of gravity didn't shift, and her body balance was pretty good. Although her moves were still a bit clumsy, her talent wasn't bad at all. But the female bodyguard said Princess Kanya couldn't learn swordsmanship like the princes. Women in the palace must learn music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. But before she finished, Kanya stole the sword to play with it. I don't care. I'm determined to learn swordsmanship. Seeing this, Arryn started to like his sister a little bit. Although she always bothers this prince, her determination and fighting spirit can be nurtured. Time passed like that. Now our prince was 5 years old, watching everyone riding war horses galloping across the meadow. And he was riding a wooden horse. Arryn was so bored he couldn't even speak. Because the prince was still young, no one dared let him ride a real horse. If anything happened to Arryn, all the servants would be executed without question. for failing in their responsibility to protect the prince. Living in a feudal dynasty is really tough. Earning a salary is not easy. After living nearly 100 lifetimes, Arn has concluded one thing. Exceptional talent will bring you misfortune. When he was an outstanding swordsman, every swordsman wanted to duel him. When gifted with magical talent, he had to face those eager to kill him. With powers accumulated over lifetimes, he always became the center of all problems. Next, Arn has to do something every child hates. That is going to maid school. Nani told Arn he is now 5 years old. It's time to practice and learn to gain more knowledge. Arn silently cursed. Do they even know how old this prince is daring to make me study? Arn worked hard in every life, so he just wanted to live once for himself. However, in the end, he couldn't avoid it. Royal law states that princes must start learning at the age of 5. Nani prepared the curriculum and put it on the table for Aaron. He looked pale. What is this pile? Why is it so much? Feeling discouraged, Arn started messing with the books like toys, spinning them on his finger, then using them to build houses. Nani was shocked and immediately told Arn to stop because this knowledge is very precious. Only royalty and nobles get access to it. Seeing Nani's firm attitude from a young age, Aaron immediately played the victim, crying and throwing a tantrum. I'm not studying. What can you do about it, Prince? In the end, Lady Lavanna had to step in personally, making Aaron stop whining and listen to his mother. He knew everyone wanted him to study because it was for his own good. But ironically, the more Aaron studied, the more he put those around him in danger. Thanks to royal blood, the illegitimate son's powers would shine even brighter. But at the same time, the risk of being targeted by enemies increased. It sounds unfair, but everyone is born with their own destiny. Maid Nani said if Aaron studied hard, Lady Lavanna would be very happy. So he decided to learn a few things to please his mother, except swordsmanship. And magic too, because studying it only brings jealousy and hatred. So what should the prince study to benefit his future? A few days later, a mage from the magic tower was invited by Lady Lavanna to measure the son's mana. If Aaron had a mana talent, he would learn magic-related knowledge. That would be disastrous. Currently, the prince's abundant mana rivals that of the strongest mage on the continent. He must hide it. On the way, seeing Aaron worried, Nani comforted him that he would definitely be accepted. But no one knew the boy was scared of that. Being too powerful is a curse. Soon Nani led Aaron into a room to introduce him to the mage from the magic tower. At first glance, Aaron could see the flow of mana running through the man's body. Then the mage began examining Aaron. But his expression wasn't very good. The mage said he couldn't sense any mana in Aaron's body even after using his own mana to penetrate the prince's bloodstream, but the result was the same. Seeing this, Aaron smiled triumphantly. When the prince acts, you don't stand a chance. Earlier on the way to another room, he controlled his chi circulation with his breath, so the mana was reset and transferred to his peripheral nervous system. He noticed the mage's surprise when he saw him, because it's unthinkable for someone of royal blood not to have mana. Then the mage reported everything to Lady Lavanna. A normal person has a small amount of mana, but the mage had never seen anyone with absolutely none like Aaron. Knowing her son had no talent to become a mage, Lavanna was very sad. But Aaron had no other choice. Today, the prince temporarily apologizes to his mother. This is just the beginning of the plan to become an untalented child. This young man is Lan Fio, a young knight. From today, he will take on the role of Aaron's swordsmanship instructor. Tui Lan Fio is a renowned sword master, but in his eyes, our prince is still too weak. After all this, Prince has fought various kinds of monsters and survived brutal battlefields. How could this Lan Fio compare to my level? Aaron told Lan Fio he didn't want to practice difficult exercises because he heard Kanya had to wear a ring to enhance physical skills. Lan Fio assured him that method was only for the Canchester family. In swordsmanship, strength isn't everything. Flexibility in every movement and balance are very important too. The two would start with basic exercises. When testing balance, Aaron said he was afraid of heights and failed. Next was testing flexibility. Lan Fio thought a child's supple body would easily pass, but it didn't. Even when practicing attacking with the straw dummy, Aaron couldn't hold the wooden sword steady. The result was a complete failure. Only then did Aaron admit he probably had no talent for swordsmanship. Lan Fio patted his shoulder to comfort him. This was only your highness's first time. If you train diligently, you will surely do better. It turned out Aaron had done it on purpose because he noticed someone lurking in the forest watching him. You can't fool this intelligent martial arts master prince who's super handsome and unbeatable. From that day, rumors began to spread quickly. Everyone was gossiping that Prince Aaron was a useless loser. Not only did he have less mana than commoners, but he also lacked sword talent. When this news reached the queen, she was extremely delighted. That meant Aaron wouldn't stand in her son's way. This man's name was Gamil. From today, he would be Aaron's private tutor because rumors that the prince was useless had spread. Everyone else refused to be his tutor. Surprisingly, someone dared to teach him anyway. Then Gamil immediately placed a stack of books on the table. These are the kingdom's common language textbooks. Usually it takes only 1 day to learn basic grammar. Unexpectedly, Gamil said, of course, that's the usual pace. You might take 1 or 2 days, and if you don't finish, that's okay. What kind of attitude is that? Is this guy looking down on the prince? I can at the prince. But since he was pretending to be useless, Aaron couldn't say anything. Actually, Aaron had started speaking very early. Thanks to his previous life's century-long experience, he had no trouble learning writing and language. Whenever everyone in the castle was asleep, he silently reviewed countless materials about this world. He wouldn't let a single lifetime pass by wasted. Today during class, Aaron told Gamil he was already proficient in the continent's language. This made the teacher think he was lying because the kingdom's language was extremely complex. No matter the talent, reading a simple book usually happens at age 12. A 5-year-old learning characters in just 2 days was unheard of. But Aaron could read fluently and flawlessly, leaving Gamil stunned. The teacher was so happy he nearly cried because a successful student brings great honor to the teacher. By then he knew Aaron was a genius very quickly. The news that Prince Aaron had mastered the language in just 2 days spread throughout the capital. His reputation reached the nobility. Not only was he fluent in language, but he could also solve basic math problems. This rumor leaked because Gamil got drunk and babbled in a tavern that he was the one who discovered Aaron's innate talent. Finally, this news reached the king's ears. The king thought forcing Aaron to study things he disliked like swordsmanship and magic was truly harsh on him. He told Livana to pay more attention to her son from now on, believing that one day Aaron would become great like himself. Aaron heard everything. Now this prince just needs to find a suitable position to live comfortably and prosperously. Raising a strong heir is the royal way. To encourage his son's studies, the king sent many gifts. Among them was a box filled with gold, silver, and jewels. Aaron's attention suddenly turned to a red pendant. He told everyone this was a special necklace when worn around the neck. It helps the wearer feel less fatigued throughout the body. But the truth is otherwise. To ordinary eyes, it's just a normal necklace. But Aaron could see the growth device hidden inside the gem. He suddenly remembered that recently Kania was undergoing special training to become a warrior, so he told his mother he wanted to give this to Kania. Madam happily agreed upon seeing her son had a good relationship with his half-sister. That day, everyone in the castle celebrated because Aaron had received the king's attention and recognition. One morning, Aaron asked the chef to prepare all the desserts he liked. He personally tasted each dish, but felt none of them were tasty at all. All these desserts lacked sweetness. Maid Nani asked Aaron if he wanted the chef called out, but he said he only needed an alchemist. Turns out, this kid was craving soda, but to recreate its flavor, alchemy was needed. But who would fulfill the request of a 5-year-old wanting an alchemist? The kingdom couldn't gather enough spices and ingredients. Recreating the flavor of Coca-Cola required many steps, but he didn't have the equipment. The young prince just wanted a refreshing sip of Coke, yet it was so difficult. At that moment, Aaron suddenly remembered he also had scholarly knowledge. Why not make Coke himself? So he immediately ran to try. Alchemy is basically just chemical reactions. How could it challenge the young prince? 3 years later, Aaron turned 8. At that time in the conference room, everyone was planning to build a new bridge mainly focused on areas frequented by merchants. After reviewing the design, Aaron asked which architect had designed this masterpiece. An uncle immediately took credit as the overseer who supervised the work day and night. The prince then sharply turned the conversation, catching the man off guard. If next time you dare create something useless like this again, I'll send you back to your village to herd ducks. Then he pointed to a spot on the design and said, it looks fine now, but once the snow melts, this area will be very dangerous. The wooden beams bear all the weight underneath, and safety was neglected due to too much focus on luxurious materials. For the kingdom's architecture, this was indeed a beautiful and luxurious project. But for the residential area, safety must be prioritized. Aaron decided this design needed to be corrected. No one in the room dared to oppose. Since taking the title of the empire's youngest genius, he had earned the king's trust and was given many responsibilities requiring intelligence and extensive knowledge. Even top scholars in their fields couldn't compare to Aaron, and of course no one truly felt comfortable obeying an 8-year-old boy. But since his father was the king, they had no choice. Aaron's talent completely won everyone over to the point they nicknamed him the young sage, who knew everything before his time. Aaron felt this was the worst nickname he had ever heard. Today, Aaron proactively entered the palace to meet the king and asked for permission to study alchemy. The king asked why he wanted to study alchemy, and Arn replied it was to help his father in the kingdom. I'm not skilled in swordsmanship or magic, so all I can do is gather and apply knowledge practically. The king was very pleased to hear this. Truly, my son, you may be young, but your thoughts and actions to help your father are anything but small. Finally, the king agreed to Arn's request and said he would introduce the best alchemist to him. So the young prince was about to drink Coke. With the news that Prince Arn was searching for an alchemist teacher, famous alchemists gathered in the kingdom. This was their chance to show off their alchemy skills to achieve greater goals. Among them was the creator of the reflective mirror that helped spread light far and was placed on the outskirts of the western fortress to block enemy advances. That person was the famous alchemist Diamond. He was personally appointed by the king as the professor for Prince Arn. When they first met, Arn thought Diamond looked quite young. He assumed the other must be an elderly alchemist. Diamond revealed that once while inhaling toxic smoke during his alchemy practice, his hair turned completely white. Diamond also added that studying alchemy is much harder and more dangerous than the king imagined, especially at such a young age like his highness's. Arn said Diamond didn't need to worry because he was already aware of the risks. Alchemy is a science, not magic. I don't want to learn it to turn things into gold like people usually think. Instead, I want to find a way to reduce impurities in iron ore to create purer materials. This gave Diamond a good impression of the prince. As rumored, he is very intelligent. The kingdom will be led by a true leader. Then Diamond knelt on one knee and vowed to teach the prince with all the knowledge he had acquired. A few days had passed since the first lesson. Arn's profound knowledge greatly surprised Diamond. He thought Arn had studied alchemy before. Arn said he had only skimmed through some books, which made the professor praise him. Truly a genius. Arn had already figured out how to extract essence from materials other than metals and chemicals found only here. Most other information matched what he had learned in his previous life. The next day, the king suddenly received a letter from Arn. The letter said he wanted to add 4 more alchemists. Seeing this, the king immediately ordered the formation of a group of famous alchemists from the kingdom. The high-ranking officials didn't understand why Arn did this. The national treasury was being seriously affected. This was a concerning issue, and many citizens were wondering about it. He also said he wanted to create a soft drink never seen before in this world. After learning it was a common beverage, everyone was totally disappointed. Scholars like us traveled far here to gain prestige for our families. Yet you say you want to make food and drinks. That's it. That's really disappointing. Then Aaron told everyone not to worry. I promise to compensate for the damage caused by interrupting your work. And of course, when I do something, failure is not an option. A few days later, naturally collected GA water from across the continent was brought to the capital, but for some reason, it all went bad. So Arn decided to make artificial GA water. Then he began assigning tasks to each person based on the basic instructions I gave you. Just explore a bit, and you'll understand how simple it is. The renowned alchemists of the empire couldn't help but sweat after hearing this. Black beans and water spinach. That's simple enough, right? A few days later, Arn had created artificial GA water. He didn't expect them to finish so quickly. Discover the theory and conduct experiments. This is the joy of alchemy. Arn declared this will bring life to the kingdom. The explosion of soft drinks will lead the nation's future. Everyone in the room doubted whether this drink would truly become famous. GA water is a stimulant, but its flavor is very hard to drink. Secondly, Arn explained, of course, it's not meant to be drunk like that. People have to mix in fruit juice or alcohol to make it tasty. The initial goal was cola, but it failed because no cola plants were found. So fruit soda was born. First, Arn tried a sweet and sour lemon flavor. This is that flavor. When the alchemists tasted it, they didn't expect it to be so good. From then on, Prince Arn's fruit soda was born. The fame of fruit soda spread throughout the kingdom of Indonesia. In the old world, soda was just a common drink anyone could buy. But here it became a luxury item among nobles on par with expensive goods, greatly contributing to the kingdom's economy. When they heard this news, the elders in the noble circles deeply regretted it. If they had known earlier how talented Prince Arn was, they would have befriended him long ago. 2 years later, Arn had turned 10 and Princess Kania was now 16. Her swordsmanship had improved steadily, mastering all the basic techniques. Arn considered her even better than most boys her age. Since Arn started producing carbonated drinks, the kingdom's economy had stabilized. Arn's mother's real name was Lavana Enrest. The Enrest family was a noble house that had declined during tough times. They only owned a small territory and struggled to survive like common folk. After learning about Arn's mother's situation, he entrusted full distribution rights of soda to the Enrest family. When carbonated drinks became a hot trend, The Enres family quickly grew wealthy in a short time. Even Princess Kania felt jealous of her little brother because he was just too talented. He's the legendary model child everyone talks about. Arn was about to invite Kania out for waffles with syrup and soda when his sister suddenly got excited and insisted on challenging him to a sword duel. What's the point of having a lot of money if we don't have the ability to protect it? While practicing swordsmanship, Arn could sense Kania's dreams and goals. She longed to personally raise a child to become a master swordsman. That dream must have turned a fragile girl into someone so passionate. By noon, the king summoned Arn to the palace for a meal. While he was eating cake, the king suddenly asked if he had considered what position he would take in the government. The little guy choked in surprise. The old king continued, "I know it's still a bit early, but if you take on a government role now, no one will oppose it." But Aaron refused. What a joke in this life, this prince just wants to enjoy himself. Sorry, old man, I don't know what made you hold me in such high regard, but I prefer studying science and alchemy. At this point, the crown prince wasn't even in the government yet, and the king already wanted him to join. The queen hadn't taken any action because this prince always knew his limits. Being loved by the king is very different from being trusted with a government position. I would be envied and resented by other royal family members, and a power struggle would break out. Nature isn't the only place with a survival of the fittest law. Sitting on the throne means having power like an eagle. If you're weak, you won't survive, even after 1,000 lifetimes. But it doesn't really matter, because this prince isn't easily defeated anyway. The next day, Arn rode his horse out for a ride. This was the first time he had gone so far outside the castle, feeling the morning sun and the cool breeze blowing over his skin. The feeling of freedom was wonderful after so many hard days. Finally, some relaxation. This time, Princess Kania came along too, followed by a squad of knights escorting them. Just a casual stroll, but they had a whole bunch of experts for protection. Having an old man as king sure is nice. While Arn was riding, he suddenly sensed something and stopped immediately. Inside the forest ahead, there were signs of magic. He warned Kania there might be monsters inside that forest. Kania asked how he knew, and he said his sixth sense was very strong. But despite his warnings, Kania urged her horse forward alone. The escort team then explained to Arn that the forest was actually the princess's training ground. It turned out Kania wanted to use this opportunity to train her little brother. After going a bit further, they immediately encountered 20 bandits in the forest. Kania wasn't afraid at all. She drew her sword and executed a few basic moves, sending them all to meet their ancestors. Arn watched from the side, assessing his sister's skills. Not only was she great at swordsmanship, but she also stayed very calm. The courage and spirit radiating from his sister was enough to overwhelm everyone. At night, the group set up camp and lit a fire to cook. Arn asked Kania why she wanted to become strong. Kania said that because she is a princess, no matter how skilled she is with the sword, no one will acknowledge it. They will just think she got a sudden whim for a few days and then gave up. If nothing happens one day, she will have to marry someone she doesn't even know to benefit the royal family through a political marriage. But Kania hates that dull life. She only wants to be like Aaron, who earned a lot of money through his talent, not relying on his status as a prince. He contributes to the kingdom and is recognized by everyone. Kania wants the same to contribute to her family through her own talent, not through a political marriage. She wants to decide her own fate. The next day, Kania continued hunting monsters. Her swordsmanship had reached a level where every swing took down one creature. The soldiers couldn't help but feel sympathy for the poor monsters. Why would they provoke their princess? Seeing that the hunt was enough, Arn told his sister, "We need to go home. After all, there are no more monsters to hunt." She wiped out the entire den already. Although Kania felt she hadn't fought enough, she still listened to her brother and returned to the castle. On the way, Kania's horse suddenly showed signs of exhaustion from overwork. She handed her horse over to the servant for care and rode together with her brother on one horse. On the way back, the group suddenly saw a strange cloud in the sky. Arn immediately sensed something inside the cloud. The creature lurking behind the clouds was a dragon. Arn quickly warned everyone, "There's a dragon flying this way. Everyone run towards the forest." The soldiers didn't see the dragon, so they didn't leave, and said the landowner had confirmed no dragons appeared here. But before they finished speaking, that person was grabbed and lifted into the sky by a dragon's claw. Moreover, there wasn't just one or two dragons, but an entire flock. Seeing this, Arn was very puzzled. Dragons are usually solitary creatures, but now they were moving in a pack. Watching the dragons wildly slaughter the escort team, he realized they weren't hunting for food but intended to massacre. Under their fierce attack, the group quickly suffered heavy casualties. Despite their overwhelming numbers, the dragons still use acid breath. It was unclear why they used such a strong poison. At this moment, Arn had no time to care about others. He said to his sister, "Don't look back. Hold on tight." After regaining composure, the escort team immediately assigned mages to protect the two as they escaped. However, running forever wouldn't solve the problem. Dragons can resist level 4 magic and below. The longer it went on, the more disadvantaged the mages became. Arn quickly transformed mana into bullets and successfully took down 2 dragons. However, one landed right in front of him. As it was about to roast the 2 of them, Kania's bodyguard dealt it a critical strike. Suddenly, a sinister laugh echoed. Then a mage in a black cloak immediately appeared on the battlefield. He held a very strange-looking staff. Arn asked, "Who are you?" but he didn't answer, instead swinging the staff and launching a magic cannon at him, which Arn dodged. Then he mentioned Princess Kania's name, making Arn suspect that his sister was the real target of the attack. The opponent continued to use his staff. It began emitting a strange energy that suddenly revived all the dead soldiers. Even the dragon corpses were affected. The mage shouted loudly, "Kill the 2 princesses and teach those arrogant princes the power of darkness." Seeing the enemy dare to target his sister, Aaron quickly shot him with several bullets on the spot so fast that Kania didn't even see what happened. She asked, "What just happened?" Arn said. Maybe because he overused his power, he died as a side effect. Although the mage was dead, his curse would still be active for a short time. Aaron decided to ride ahead to help his sister retreat first, while the cavalry team covered the rear. They only stopped riding to rest in the evening. Seeing many people lose their lives because of her, Kania felt very regretful. If she hadn't insisted on training, this wouldn't have happened. Aaron immediately comforted her. "This was just an accident. It's not your fault." But thinking back, he felt he was a bit too mature for a kid who had just been hunted. So he had to pretend a little to seem like a real prince. He was really scared. Kania grabbed Aaron's hand and said thank you. If he hadn't been by her side today, she wouldn't have returned safely. Aaron realized his sister was feeling guilty about the guards who sacrificed themselves. Although the prince always faced assassination risks, this was Kania's first time going through it. Now they had to focus on getting back safely. Safety was the top priority. Suddenly they saw a dragon and a birdmaster fighting in the sky. It turned out there was a nest on the cliff. The dragon seemed to be targeting the birdmaster's chick. Although the mother bird fought desperately to protect her chick, she was no match for the dragon. Luckily, after the mother bird died, the dragon flew away. Aaron turned around but couldn't see his sister anywhere. It turned out she saw the mother bird had died protecting her chick until her last breath, so she wanted to take care of the baby bird. It was still too small to survive in the wild on its own. If a baby bird master that hadn't even opened its eyes was left here alone, it would likely become prey for wild beasts. Actually, although it seemed cruel, Aaron didn't want to interfere with nature's laws. But he also couldn't refuse his sister. At that moment, the escort team found them. Fortunately, no one died. After the mage's curse disappeared, everyone was surprised to see the princess holding a baby bird master in her arms. You can't blame the prince. He gave all kinds of advice, but she just wouldn't listen. A week later, everything returned to normal. Aaron's family had welcomed a new member, this baby bird master named Fry. Fry was very cute and attached to its owner. For some reason, it only liked to follow Aaron. Earlier, he had cut open the mother bird's chest and taken the magical stone. This helped him tame the baby bird master. Whenever she was free, Kani would visit her brother and play with Fry. The dark forces that attacked the princess were being hunted across the kingdom. The king even offered a reward for anyone who could provide useful information. Seems like the prince had been too busy chasing money all this time. If the tiger doesn't roar, they think they're Hello Kitty. What made Aaron angry was that those scoundrels dared to attack his sister, even though Kania was just a princess without high status in the royal family. If you're family to the prince, at least make her known as a master swordswoman. Aaron's next goal was to make his sister a top expert before she turned 20. All this time, Aaron had secretly transferred some of his mana to Kania so she could use a power called aura. The most important thing when using aura is the brain. Since then, whenever Kania visited Fry, she would practice swordsmanship and aura training with Aaron. As expected, she mastered aura use at an unbelievably fast pace. However, there was an unforeseen side effect because Fry was exposed to this huge power. So the side effect of aura training was that it temporarily made Fry this big. Now it was even bigger than its owner, which really upset the prince. While the siblings were talking, the maid suddenly announced the king's arrival. Recently, Aaron heard the king was busy handling renovations in the north. If he came here, there must be something going on. It turned out the king knew about the prince's dedication to sword training, so he sent soldiers with a gift for him. It was a sword with an O2 specially crafted just for Aaron. He picked it up and saw it really was a good sword. But this life Arn was determined to be a laid-back prince who eats well and waits to die, so he couldn't reveal his true strength. So Arn started acting again. This sword is really too heavy. In his heart, he thought that his current self was already excellent in many ways. If I also mastered swordsmanship, it would be troublesome because I would easily get involved in the battle for the throne. Being a prince means not having to work, but still getting to eat. Isn't that great? Arn said to the king. Thank you for giving me this priceless gift. But I have only just started practicing swordsmanship, so I think this sword suits Sister Kanya better. At that time, Kanya was making rapid progress. She had also become proficient in using aura. Now she was enough to be considered one of the kingdom's top talents. At this rate, Kanya becoming an aura expert was just a matter of time, something only 30 people in this kingdom have achieved. Yes, the king said, that's fine, but I have one condition. Kanya must prove that she is worthy of that sword. Lift the sword and show me how much you have improved. Kanya looked at her sister anxiously. Arn encouraged her, seize the chance and show father. Sister, defeat the old man. The prince hadn't forgotten the grudge from years ago. He doesn't care about us. As expected, after being encouraged by her brother, Kanya felt much more confident. Then Kanya calmly faced the king. Her stance was very different from the other knights, which surprised him a bit. At that moment, Kanya started her move. Her innate power combined with a huge amount of mana reached a speed barely visible to the naked eye. However, facing the fierce attack from his daughter, the king just smiled and easily parried the sword strike. Then the king praised Kanya, so you have improved this much. That was a strong attack. Even a cavalry regiment can't emit as much aura as this when fighting me. Well done, Kanya. Then the king asked Aaron if he was the one who taught Kanya swordsmanship. Aaron said he only taught the theory. From what I've observed, the current swordsmanship isn't suited for her. She seems to have talent for using aura, so I only gave her some advice. The king asked again, you can still teach that method to others, right? Aaron immediately frowned. So this is your real intention for coming here? To train a group of knights who are aura experts by teaching them the method. Surely you want to create an unrivaled army that no country can catch up with. Aaron said, that's impossible. If the king expects results like Kanya's, I think it's because Kanya has had potential since childhood. We've played together since we were little, so I had plenty of time to observe every move she made to help her improve like today. This inevitably disappointed the king a little. Honestly, Aaron could find training methods suitable for each person, guiding them after a few observations. But that's just too much work. More importantly, the prince is not crazy to spend all day watching those sweaty muscles. It's gross to look at, but because he didn't want the old man to be disappointed, Aaron said he could still guide members of the royal family. According to him, the other nobles are seeds of danger to the throne. Revealing the secret method would cause a lot of trouble. Why would I want to help my future potential enemies get stronger? This prince is really too smart. Then the king promised Aaron to only pass the secret method to the royal bloodline. Thinking about his training method being passed down through generations in the royal family like a national treasure, Aaron couldn't stop smiling. Thanks to Aaron's method, a few months later, the king's strength had improved significantly. Thinking of Aaron as a genius who couldn't train because of his weak body, the king decided he had to do something for his son. The next day, the king publicly recruited a personal tutor for Aaron. Many people submitted their CVs. The king personally selected the best candidates among them. Most of them come from noble families. Aaron recalled that a few years ago, they didn't even bother to look at him, but as his reputation grew, these people immediately changed their tune. It wouldn't be bad if there were some beautiful female knights around. And the male knights, please transform quickly for this prince. The interview has started, but it's not quite what Aaron imagined. All the female knight applicants are very tall and muscular. They constantly emit an intense military aura. Now that I think about it, it makes sense. There's no delicate, beautiful girl who matches up to such strong ability. They have to train relentlessly to become knights. Those authors from my past life sure pulled some tricks on us. Among the applicants, Aaron noticed a few particularly special individuals. Some are even more muscular than men. If they become knights, it would definitely be very safe. Anyone who dares to talk back gets slapped like a dog. Joking aside, some have a noble demeanor looking like aristocrats. Aaron told everyone to wait outside for their turn because he wanted to interview them one by one. Then he activated his sixth sense. It helps stimulate the brain and improve thinking. Only those who have trained for a long time like the royal guards can achieve this ability. But for Aaron, it's as easy as pie since he has lived many lives. The reason he put so much effort into this is that many people with dark intentions would appear in this situation. Such people would be eliminated right from the start. The sixth sense ability, true to its name, is an eye that can see through the deepest thoughts of others. Arn can't read everyone's thoughts, but he can quickly recognize the colors of their souls and emotions. One girl caught his attention, the blonde female knight. How could someone be so pure like that before? Her name is Asa. Although an outstanding candidate, Asa comes from the humblest background. So far, this beautiful girl is the only one who matches the prince's taste. While Aaron was hesitating about whether to choose the muscular female knight from earlier, a girl suddenly entered the interview room to introduce herself. She is Senna, the last candidate. According to Aaron's assessment, Sina is also a kind and pure-hearted person. Her personality seems lively and all over the place, but her combat ability and experience are unknown. Reading Sina's file, Aaron found out she was sent not only to the border region, but also to remote territories. It seems Sina follows every summons in the kingdom. She also revealed that due to her special circumstances, she likes to travel around. Finally, Aaron announced that the interview ended here. Asa and Senna were the two candidates selected. From then on, the castle had two new members join. Senna is usually very lively, but whenever on a mission, she becomes extremely serious. Aaron still didn't fully understand each person's abilities, so he wanted both to demonstrate them directly here. Aaron wanted his two bodyguards to become stronger. To do that, the first step is to evaluate their skills carefully. A duel between two people of equal level would help them fully showcase their abilities without holding back. So Aaron began his acting skills like a top actor. Among you two, who is really stronger than me, I'm really curious. After Aaron's taunt, Senna and Asa started looking at each other with eyes full of fighting spirit. As for our prince, the one who sparked the conflict, he was sitting off to the side watching eagerly. After some heated verbal sparring with neither side backing down, the two began exchanging moves. Aaron was immediately swept away by their fierce energy. Asa was the one to initiate the combat. However, Senna could read her opponent's attacks with her eyes, so she easily parried the moves. This ability is quite similar to that of wild animals. Then Senna closed in to counterattack, but Asa timely delivered a kick to create distance between them. Their wild fighting spirits soared uncontrollably, clashing in the air. Feeling it was enough, Aaron immediately told them to stop. Through the fight, Aaron understood the skills of both. Then you pointed out the weaknesses that the two of them need to improve. For example, Asa is very calm because he focuses only on speed, while Senna is a bit timid because she's only used to close combat. Being personally coached by the kingdom's genius prince, the two kids nodded and thanked him profusely. Next, the special training plan dedicated to Aaron's personal knights will officially begin today. You only explain theory to apply it in practice. In your hands is a handbook that helps anyone become a knight. If the class is successful, Aaron will release this book to the market. The two kids held the book for a while but didn't understand anything. Asa asked why the mana needed to circulate throughout the body to strengthen the aura. Aaron immediately explained that the amount of mana stored in each person is naturally different. Once the flow isn't circulating properly, if the two try to force it, it will go off course. So now you two need to learn how to absorb and store mana in daily life and how to circulate it efficiently. Aaron started with Senna first. She can only use aura in one spot. If Senna uses aura in multiple places at once, she will become exhausted. Aaron then placed his hand in Senna's palm and taught her a small trick. Feeling body heat or touch makes it easier to focus. Sure enough, this method worked, but this girl kept touching Aaron's smooth skin nonstop. Have some shame, sis. Next is Asa's turn. His weakness is he easily loses calm when the opponent gets close, so you trained Asa to be patient. When using the charging attack, the most important thing is to stay calm. Asa had to carry Aaron until she felt the weight on her back shift somewhere else. After noticing the king increasingly favored, Aaron the queen felt her son's position was threatened and decided to take action against him, not allowing him to lay eggs here. Under Aaron's guidance, Asa's strength improved greatly. She came from a noble family but fell on hard times. They weren't financially well off, so they had to move to live in a small countryside area. The famine caused by monsters was the reason the family collapsed. Asa's father died when their home was attacked by monsters. Before he died, he entrusted the family's fate to her. After that, Asa volunteered to join the knights to make a living. Thanks to her martial talents, she quickly awakened her aura and was sent to the royal capital. The kingdom's 15th Knight Legion was a place for worthless, incompetent people. And the worst among them was their lazy, useless commander. He got the position through connections. Just thinking about that disgusting boss made Asa want to give him a charging attack. As for Senna, her family had been mercenaries for generations. She grew up in a mercenary tribe not owned by any country because they often moved from place to place. Senna's father was an honest man. Just because of a conflict with a corrupt noble, he was killed by that noble abusing his power. Senna's personality is very much like her father's. She hates evil and injustice deeply. Even superiors and colleagues who did wrong would get punched until their profile pictures were distorted. Because of that, she often had to transfer jobs. Soon Arn will turn 14. In ancient times, 14 was considered adulthood. Recently, rumors have surfaced in the kingdom that Aaron will inherit the throne instead of the crown prince. This has shaken public opinion a lot. The nobles asked the king to grant Aaron land to live independently to stabilize the country's political situation. But their real goal was to push Aaron away from the throne and the center of power in the capital. If the domestic nobles united, even the emperor couldn't do anything. He neither agreed nor refused, but said he needed to think more. But the nobles didn't know that this was exactly what Aaron wanted. Who cares about the throne? Owning your own land is 100 times better than dealing with those fake people. The decision was made very quickly. After coming of age, Prince Arn will have to go to his fiefdom. It is the land of Fahilia in the north, covered in snow all year round. If you are unlucky enough to get lost there, you will freeze to death. Senna once trained there for a year. It's not exactly dangerous because there aren't many monsters, but the climate is extremely harsh. The winter weather is bone-chilling cold. Arn worried about his mother and Canna, so before leaving, he summoned his trusted aide to create a long-distance communication device. Step 2 in Arn's plan to live independently. He and Asa went to a slave market. Hearing that the prince was coming, the market owner named Ian personally came to greet them. After some polite greetings, Ian directly asked His Highness what kind of slaves he was looking for. Arn immediately said he needed to buy at least 150 people, which made Ian a bit surprised. His request was that the slaves must know each other or be members of one family. And Arn had no shortage of money. He planned to make them residents of the land he was about to go to. There must be servants and subordinates for this prince to live comfortably. Just wait and see. I will definitely make Fahilia the most wonderful land in the kingdom. That's the end of part 1. If you enjoyed the video, please like and support me. Thank you and goodbye, everyone.